All right, welcome to this Earnestly podcast. I'm your host, Earnestly Christian, coming to you, recorded on the late Thursday night. Should be dropping in your podcast feeds on early Friday morning, really early Friday morning. On the line, of course, our good friend, Marc Francois. Mark, what's up?
Hey, man, I'm happy to be here. Take a break from the regimented format and get back to the nice. Let our hair down, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
walk
honestly,
around with no pants on.
Yeah, there's no way I'll get on that tonight. Especially, I'm exhausted. These boys, my oldest son Eli is on spring break, so I'm like wired all day long. So by the time I get to the nighttime,
is the time change a kick in the dick for your household with Logan? Like, I imagine Eli's probably old enough now where it's not really a big deal. I imagine he's a couple of days, but is Logan still young enough that is a disruptive force in the household?
It is. In fact, it's been worse this week because he's been getting. Typically, he doesn't do as much, but the last 3 of the last 5 nights, he's made it a habit of getting up early in the morning, like 4 in the morning, to get up to go pick up his food to make me feed him in the middle of the night. Now, I'm not a bottle. No, by the way, Mark, not a bottle. Remember, he'll be 2 years old in like 2 weeks. It's.
Yeah. So you're fixing him a plate, like.
No, I'm getting baby food, but I'm getting baby food out of a spoon, and he wants to be fed at 4 o'clock in the fucking morning. Like, oh my god, are you serious?
No. It's funny because I was talking about this with my sister, and she even joked about it. Like, she confessed to me. She was like, I used to think the whole thing about like daylight versus standard was a bunch of bullshit, and that people were whining. I never really understood it until I had kids that aren't good sleepers and whose entire ability to function revolves around their sleep schedule. So my nephews are pretty decent kids. They're not friendly kids. They don't love people they don't know. And if they don't sleep, they're fucking monsters.
It never bothered me at all.
Shifting their sleep schedule an hour is a 2-month ordeal.
It never bothered me at all until this year. Daylight saving time was never an issue for me. This year, for some reason, well, it's been a kick in my dick. Let's be honest.
See, and it's funny too because on the other side of the family, with my fiance's nieces, like they're not great sleepers. Like the one is Ellie's 3, so she's kind of like she's protesting naps right now. So that like doesn't really have anything to do with daylight savings time. But like both kids are great sleepers, so it's a challenge, but it's not a nightmare like it is.
No, I'm lucky there. See, that's how I'm lucky. I'm actually lucky there because my kid still naps every day around between 11 and 12 o'clock in the afternoon. He'll get about 2-3 hours of nap. Typically, if my son's in school, of course, during the week, I'll do a podcast and around that time sometimes, or nap with him.
Yeah.
So
we're taking the kiddos to Disneyland tomorrow. The fiance and her sister and brother-in-law and their 2 little ones, and
nice.
The 1-year-old, they literally just strap her on, and she goes to sleep and takes her nap. And the 3-year-old, she'll sleep in the car to and from, and we may put her in the stroller for a nap or something, but. Usually she powers through the whole day at 3, and then just crashes the minute she gets in her car seat.
We get that once in a while. The little one, Logan, doesn't once in a while. He'll fall asleep during if we're going like a long strand of like walk around the park. He'll fall asleep once in a while, but it's tough, man. It's tough. Okay. Anyway, how's your bracket looking so far?
Dude, I'm looking sharp. I'm not gonna lie. I think I'm like 7-2.
Whoa.
I whiffed on Marquette. I didn't see the triple double coming from that Murray State kid.
Yeah.
So that was one of the 5-12 upsets I went chalk on. Like, in fairness, I don't know shit about college basketball this year. I was telling you, in the pre-call that my entire college basketball watching has consisted of Zion Williamson highlights on Instagram from like fall of life.
Have you always been the way though? Were you always this way, or was it something that?
No, it's come and gone in phases. Like I watched more as a kid. I had friends around me that happened to watch the year that UCLA last won it all in '95, so I got really into it. I got really invested when UCLA was going to Final Fours with like Westbrook and Kevin Love and Jordan Farmar and those guys. But the product just sucks. So for me, it's harder to watch college basketball throughout the season because you just, especially through the early parts of the season, you're just running through so many shitty games.
Yeah. And what's so funny too is like I used to complain about some of the things one of the things I hated for a long time, which they fixed actually and continue fixing through the years, was the shot clock. I thought the shot clock was too long years back. 45-second shot clock.
Oh, when it was
now,
still
45
yeah.
second shot clock.
I've only really watched college basketball in the 35-second shot clock,
Yeah.
like that I remember.
And now it's 30. Now it's 30.
Yeah.
So they've actually improved the product in that
Well,
way.
and I think that makes sense too to have it be gradual, because I remember like when I was in high school it was 35 seconds, and I thought that was weird that it didn't like diminish from high school to college. And I thought that was a gnarly and you would see that a lot, especially with young point guards. I remember watching Farmar early on when he came up with the Lakers, because he got drafted at a time when the Lakers were on their way up right before Powell.
Right.
And so he was getting some minutes as a rookie. He was getting a lot of minutes as a rookie before they got Gasol, and then they got really good, and he was pretty much relegated to the bench after they got Fisher back and all that. But you would see times where they would be having a good offensive progression, and he just wasn't watching the clock, and he thought he had another 9 seconds. You know what I mean? Like his brain was so trained.
Yeah, that's true. No, I think the sweet sauce, the sweet science will be 25 seconds.
Yeah, and as long as I think this tournament's going to be great, as long as Duke doesn't get upset. If Duke gets upset, it's going to blow up the viewing. I think.
I hate Duke, and I picked them to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, come on. It's not. They're far and away better.
I mean, I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong, but I don't think.
I mean, UNC Duke was a pretty good game without Zion on the floor.
Yeah.
And we've already seen the numbers that Duke is a markedly different offensive team by like double digits when he's off the floor. So I gotta believe that if it comes down to like Duke and North Carolina, it's a little more than a coin flip, but leans to Duke.
Well, I gotta say,
I pretty much went chalk in my bracket.
Well, I'll say this much though, Mark. The way things are going for your Lakers right now, they might be in the running to get Zion in this spring.
Oh, fuck me. Jesus. I know, right? It's bad. It's ugly. It's ugly. But, it's kind of what we talked about on the show with Matthew Damien.
Right.
And it's really an amalgamation of so many different things that went wrong. Luke and LeBron was not a perfect fit. The team that Rob and Magic fielded was not suited to a team. They tried to force a square peg in a round hole and go in a direction that was not productive and that was not conducive to success. And then the four best players only played 23 games together. In Kuzma, Ingram, LeBron, and Lonzo Ball. And in those 23 games, they were 15-8. So if you run that out to a projection on the whole season, they're a 53-win team.
Right. I don't think, LeBron missed 17 games, obviously, is a big deal. But I don't think the Lonzo.
No, but it was, well, that's one that I think goes under the radar because of his individual deficiencies, and he is not short on flaws. Let's get that out of the way.
Of course. Yeah.
But the Lakers' offense is remarkably more efficient when he's on the floor, and given what LeBron's limitations have manifested to be this season as opposed to previous post-30 seasons with the Cavs, he's better off the ball. And having Lonzo on the floor allows them to push pace and maximize LeBron.
Right.
Because it gives them another option.
Do you think Lonzo will be here next year? I think he'll be next year.
Yeah, I gotta believe. So with the DVT blood clots that Ingram was dealing with, which have supposedly been
very
successfully, really, really scary stuff. However, what they're saying is that the defect he experienced was not a structural defect. It was more, so it's different than, say, like what Chris Bosh was dealing with, where his is a chronic condition where he's going to continue to develop these unsafe blood clots. The contention of the doctors after performing Ingram's surgery was such that his was a more isolated case and they don't expect recurrence. That said, Windhorst said on his podcast that executives around the league are going to be hesitant to trade for him. So that if that statement is true, it throws out the whole notion of trading for Anthony Davis, because Brandon Ingram has to be a centerpiece of a trade of that magnitude.
Right.
So it's going to shift what they're able to do going forward, which I really can't predict how that's going to affect Lonzo. I would think it makes him more likely to be traded, but he's missed 40% of his games, and the 60% that he's played in, he hasn't played particularly well. So
right.
I don't know how much value you're going to get back for that.
I think, Mark, this summer is probably the most important Lakers summer maybe ever, because if they don't get this right, yes, you have LeBron James, and that's always a good thing. But after everything's happened this year, he'll be 35 next year.
But this is not 2011 LeBron James or even 2014 LeBron James. And this is a very different iteration of LeBron.
And Mark, I am now convinced that I don't think there is a lot of enticement to play with him anymore now from stars.
I would think that his personality issues, the LeBron effect on a team, is a lot less palatable than it would have been. Like guys would have looked the other way on a lot of shit that they wouldn't otherwise with other people because of LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
However, after this season, guys are going, do I really want to deal with all that? Is it worth it? I don't know.
Well, okay, let's go through the options. Who are the options next? Okay, obviously Anthony Davis, and which they tried to get him. Obviously a few months ago that didn't work out.
I think acquiring Anthony Davis this summer via trade is probably not going to happen.
You think free agency instead?
I think that's the best chance you have.
So you think the Pelicans are hell bent on not trading him to the Lakers at all?
I don't think that it's that. I don't necessarily think it's that New Orleans is hell bent on not trading Anthony Davis to the Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if Windhorst is correct about Brandon Ingram, it's a non-starter, because there's no way to trade for Anthony Davis without Brandon Ingram being a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And his value, despite the way he played his ass off, particularly through the second half of the season and after LeBron went down, the fear surrounding the nature of his medical condition will diminish his value more than, the delta of that is greater than the delta of his, performance increase over the course of the season.
Right. Well,
as far as its impact on trade value.
You still have guys like, I believe Klay Thompson's a free agent this coming summer. I believe
I don't see him leaving Golden State
unless
the Golden State ownership so badly mishandles the whole situation with over focusing on him or over focusing on KD and in doing so pissing off Klay. I think I would say it's Oakland's to lose.
Right.
In terms of Klay. But I think if he were to go anywhere other than Golden State, it's all but automatic that it's to LA. For a variety of reasons, and one of which being that if he leaves Golden State, I venture to guess it's because he's pissed off. And so if that's the case, he's going to want to stick it to Golden State.
I feel like him
350 miles down the road.
Yeah, I feel with Klay, it has to be a literally in-house implosion, which I don't see happening. I think that the odds are that Draymond's the last guy out or directly.
I think Draymond's the guy out in the cold. And my bigger fear is that with him just signing with Clutch Sports, that he ends up a Laker next year.
Yeah, you expressed it last week on the show. You did definitely express it last week on the show.
Well, here's the thing. 2019 is going to be one of those fucked up free agent years like 2010, 2011, whatever that was with the decision.
Yeah.
And the reason being is too many teams have too much money. So you're going to see guys, for instance, on the fringe getting those Amari Stoudemire deals that they didn't really deserve, Sean Marion deals, getting elevated by the market. The guys I see getting overpaid in that regard, say Tobias Harris. Is Tobias Harris a max player any other offseason? Probably not. But is he going to get $20 million next year because of the market conditions? better than good chance, and good for him for getting that. You know what I mean? Fuck the billionaires.
What about Jimmy Butler?
I think he's another guy that's going to probably get paid more than he should. He will command a max. He's right on the edge of commanding a max. But it's going to have a lot to do, I think, with how he performs. I think his July is going to be very heavily dictated by how long after the third week of April his season continues.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If Philadelphia, if he is averaging 25, 35 points a game and the 76ers go on to trounce the East, mow through Toronto, Milwaukee, Boston, and then put up even a respectable showing in the finals against the Warriors or something, then okay, yeah, Jimmy Butler's getting a max contract next year. But if they're succeeding despite him or failing because of him, he's going to have a lot of people going, well, fucking A, man.
I'll be honest,
like,
I am bullish.
You fought your way out of Chicago and Minnesota to get to Philadelphia, and then you didn't do shit when you were there. What the hell are you doing telling me you're a $25 million a year player? Like, what about your resume dictates that?
I'll tell you this much, though. I am really bullish on the Sixers this year. They beat Milwaukee on Sunday.
They're nasty, dude.
No,
they're nasty. They're not deep. They're good.
They got the best starting five in the East, no doubt about that. They beat Milwaukee on Sunday, beat Boston yesterday, but yet I'm still I'm not sure I trust them yet. You know, playoff time. There's something. Yeah, it's something there. I'm not really getting something there. It's holding me back.
We've talked about this for years, podcasting together with different teams. It was a flaw of the old Cavs teams. It was a flaw of a number of different teams we've talked about, where they're really exciting, they're really fun, they're really talented, but they miss that grit that takes them to the next level in the postseason, because the game is going to ramp up whether you're ready or not.
Well, tell them Butler be that guy. Butler be that guy.
Last year, Toronto was a great example of that last year. They got fucking taken apart. The combination of Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan were non-existent.
Right.
And Philadelphia has a lot of those scary question marks kind of hanging over them.
Although you say that, but then Butler is by nature would be that guy, right? The grit guy would be Jimmy Butler, right? Yeah.
Well, you hope that grit is the right. There's a very fine line between it being a motivator and a problem, as we saw with different Lakers rosters and Kobe Bryant over the years.
A dickhead, an asshole, yeah.
Yeah. Well, is it the asshole? Is it, you just got to get to know him, or, oh, God, this fucking guy?
Yeah.
And that kind of takes us into our conversation about Russ, too.
That's a great segue, man. Because...
Well, he's the other most prominent player. I mean, he's one of the highest paid in the NBA. He has inarguably been one of the most talented and explosive players to watch of the last 10 years. 11 years.
Yeah.
And every single time he is put in a situation where he is tested, stressed, prodded, what have you, and needs to display leadership, he wets the bed.
Yeah. And it's his fault.
The whole situation in Salt Lake City. I think everything that happened with that guy, he was a douchebag. His wife was a terrible, terrible, terrible human. I'll see you next Tuesday. They said disgusting, racist things to him. But he didn't make the best counter argument by threatening to whoop that ass. He should have just called security over and told get a cameraman on that guy. Don't tell him I'm going to beat your fucking ass. Be like, hey, Doris Burke, you and your cameraman, point it in that guy's fucking face right now. And call security over here.
Yeah.
And shut up.
Well, I remember.
And then you go to your press conference and say, look, this is ridiculous. Adam Silver and the owners really need to take a look at the question between making money and fan experience and player safety and our ability to do our job and, then you're asking legitimate questions and proposing inquest into solving a legitimate problem. But now, by saying, "Oh, I'm going to fuck you up," all you've done is escalate the problem. Sure, he's justified in wanting to feel that way, but you are a professional making $30 million a year, and you need to be a little more composed than that, even when people do say nasty, disgusting, racist things to you. There's a better way to fight.
Mark, the thing with him is he just feels unhinged. He feels like, I don't know, he's always angry. And look, I get that. Kobe had that a little bit with him, so did Jordan. But the difference between Russell versus Kobe and Jordan is that Kobe and Jordan knew how to pull that back. They knew how to.
Well, I would argue that I think it's a disservice to MJ and Kobe and an over compliment of Russ to mention him in that discussion right now, because he's really not doing anything to merit it besides averaging a triple-double. And one could even argue that the way he goes about it is indicative of the very problem we're discussing. I would compare him more to John Starks.
Ooh, God, that's a little low. I mean, John. No. Attitude, yes. Not just a skill.
That's right. I'm not. It's not a talent thing.
Right.
It's not to say that like Russ is in that. No,
because John Starks was a hothead. He definitely was a hothead.
Objectively, no. But Starks was a guy that could either have won them a championship and gotten them past Orlando and potentially beaten Houston, or cost them games in series. And he cost them games in series.
He did.
Whether it was headbutting Reggie Miller or getting technical fouls at terrible moments, all these different things. John was, as they talk about in the Winning Time documentary, Jeff Van Gundy says that he's like a coiled spring and you never know which way he's going to bounce. And it could either be the best thing or the worst thing.
Yeah.
And Russ is very much that same way, I think.
I actually agree with you on that one. I mean, I would say Starks was probably worse in that way. I think Russ, for the most part.
Well, I would argue that some of that is NBA climate. Russ would probably fight a whole lot more if he was playing in 1993.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
Dude would be. That guy would be throwing a whole. He probably would have punched that fan in the face in Utah if it was 1993.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a different NBA now, and with the visibility and the social media and the culture of not tolerating thuggery by the league office, it's a different, you just can't behave that way. But I have absolutely no doubts whatsoever that he would be punching people if he thought he could get away with it.
I remember about 2 years ago, I did a podcast asking a question. It was a solo podcast, 12 minutes long, asking a simple question. Can you win a championship with Russell Westbrook? And at the time, I was saying, this year, we will find out. It was still a year. This is right after Durant left to go to Golden State. And, all that. I was trying to figure it out. And to me, it was like, okay, we will know this year. And to me, he's gotten progressively worse in terms of being able to trust him.
Well, and it seems that outside of Paul George, nobody really likes playing with him. And you can tell from the tongue-in-cheek comments that Steven Adams has made a couple different times throughout the season. It's like if he's saying that, because he's also the guy that keeps shit in-house. Like he winks at the reporters kind of in the same way Phil Jackson did. Like he'll make a silly joke, but he won't really tell you anything. But a couple of different times now he said some shit that's tongue-in-cheek, and you're like, I don't know how I feel. If you're an OKC fan, it should make you uncomfortable.
A little bit, yeah. And it's funny, ever since, it's funny, when OKC was rolling early in the year, they were doing it in spite of Russ struggling. And Russ has played better the last, month and a half, whatever, but OKC's not struggling now. Kind of weird, huh? Makes you wonder.
Russell Westbrook is arguably one of the most talented basketball players in the league right now.
Maybe in history.
And it is tragic that he cannot marry it, that he just doesn't have the self-awareness to say, I'm not wrong, but it's like, do you want to be right or do you want to be married? Do you want to be right or do you want to be employed?
Right.
Do you want to be right or do you want to win championships?
That's a good point. That's actually a good analogy.
He's not wrong about 95% of the things that he says. But the delivery is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, that's how he handles it.
Or outright terrible. And you're not gonna win people over that way.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way. Look.
Well,
as much as I hate that Durant left.
Some of the criticisms are unfair, but when you're that volatile, it's like winning cures all. So it's like if you're that volatile and the team's winning and you're playing your ass off, like no one's, oh, that's cute. But all of your volatility and all of your quirks and idiosyncrasies and weird neuroses and things like that are all going to be magnified if you slip just a little bit. But did Chris Bosh ever get a lot of shit when he was struggling? No. Because he was a good human to be around. People liked being around him.
Yeah.
The community liked him. The reporters liked him. Granted, he was in Canada when he was the focus of it, so he was flying under the Maple Leafs radar anyway.
Yeah,
but
that's a good point.
But he was a much nicer person to deal with. So when he was struggling, people didn't say shit.
I don't know. You can't win with him.
Russ is a prickly. No, I can't. I can't see him unless he does some major soul searching, takes up yoga and meditation, or whatever. Go spend a month on the farm with Phil in Montana and learn all that hippie shit. But unless he has a major overhaul of his approach to the game and to how he treats his teammates, he's not going to ever be the focal point of a championship team. Not even a team that sniffs a championship.
And you know what? And unless I hate that Durant left Oklahoma City, go to Golden State. Russ's actions makes him more justified. It really does. It sucks.
And the combination of Sam Presti and the whole thing. Can you really blame Kevin for not wanting to be there? I can't.
Right. Matchups, potential playoff matchups. There's some good ones that could be brewing very soon. In both conferences. Right now, if we go to the East right now, real quick, I'll tell you what. 1-8 Milwaukee, Miami. Especially now with Malcolm Brogdon out 4-6 weeks, which actually rolls into the first round of playoffs. That could be a series that might go 6 games, maybe in 7 games.
Well, and I think as a callback, sort of, Milwaukee is a really good example of one of those teams that I think is incredibly suspect for being able to turn the corner. They crept into the playoffs last year and were handily and appropriately shown the door.
Well, they lost in 7 games, but I mean, they should have won that series against Boston.
But they didn't look good in the series.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It took Boston 7 games to put them away, but they did not look like the team that they looked like all year. And Giannis was like a shadow of himself.
Right.
I mean, still very impressive. Let's not.
I mean, they're a better team now.
Yeah, and they are better, but when you have wily veterans, that's a funky matchup. That could cause problems. And I don't think they lose that series, but I think it softens them up enough that maybe they make mistakes in the second series.
Yeah, and losing Brogdon and Mirotic too. That's that.
Yeah, those are 2 huge losses.
Yeah. And that would probably roll in the first round of playoffs too. 2-7 would be Toronto and Brooklyn. Interesting. I can see Toronto win this in 5 games, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, I think Brooklyn makes them earn it a little bit, but I think largely they're kind of playing over their heads right now and riding the backs of a very hot D'Angelo Russell, taking nothing away from the amazing season that he's having. But I think their magic run is nearing its end.
Do you miss D'Angelo Russell right now?
Yes and no. Yes, of course, because obviously he is better. He would be the second best player on the Lakers without question, and would lend well to playing with LeBron, particularly given the kind of LeBron that we saw this year.
Yeah.
So that sucks.
Right.
But when you go back and you look at where the Lakers were at the time they made that trade, the other pieces that were structured into that deal, it unfortunately made a ton of sense and still makes sense, even knowing what we know today, as much as it sucks that it makes sense.
I'm sorry. I think it's still a verge to be reached on the whole thing about Lonzo and him. I'm not convinced yet that he's better than Lonzo long term. I'm not convinced yet. So.
Oh, absolutely not. No, I think D'Angelo Russell has a higher ceiling. I think it just fell at the wrong time. Like, just the timing of it all was wrong. You know what I mean? And Lonzo, and with Lonzo coming up, it made it a little easier to trade Russell. But I 100% agree with you. I think coming into the league, D'Angelo Russell out of Ohio State looked better than Lonzo did.
Right. All right. So 3-6 would be Philadelphia and Detroit. Now I'm kind of torn because I'm kind of hoping Indiana. Well, it's not going to happen now because I think Philadelphia's starting to get really hot now. They won 6 in a row. I was hoping the Phillies to the 4. To get the 4-5 Boston series, but that's not gonna happen now. But Philly and Detroit first round, interesting, but Philly should win that one pretty handily.
Yeah, no more than 5 games, really. I mean 6 maybe if something weird happens, but yeah 5 or 6 games that needs to be put away.
Yeah, 4-5 Indiana and Boston. I gotta tell you, I'll say it again. I wish there needs to be more Nate McMillan Coach of the Year talk, because what he's doing without this team is still in the top 4 in the Eastern Conference without Oladipo. He's been hurt 2 months now, over 2 months.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting series. I think, first of all, you're 100% correct that Nate McMillan is not getting nearly enough credit for the work he's doing in Indiana. Number one. And number 2, I think Boston is so up and down and so all over the place. That's a series they could lose.
Oh no, I'm not ready to put Boston past this yet. I'm not there yet. I think Boston's ready to get hot now. I don't think it happens, but I don't think it's as much a lock as it should be for Boston either. Boston is entirely too talented for it to be as big a question as it is. I'm just hoping to God that I can get a Philly-Boston series before the conference finals.
That would be awesome.
But we're not going to get one. Based on where they're at now in the brackets, it ain't going to happen.
So the only way they can meet then would be in the conference finals, the way it's currently constructed.
Yeah, because 1A plays 4-5, and then 1A plays 4-5. 3-6 plays 2-7. So Philly would probably play Toronto second round. Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn it. Philly and Boston.
Well, and and I was going to say Philly Toronto. That's a series that Philly could very easily be sent home.
Think so? Oh, yeah, of course. Like I said, the East playoffs going to be fun to watch this year. Fun to watch.
Well, and I think Toronto going deep makes the summer a whole lot more interesting, because I think it takes away from that conversation that Kawhi's a lock to go to the Clippers.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Meanwhile, in the West, speaking of Clippers, 1-8 would be the Warriors and the Clippers. Yeah, fascinating. The Warriors win that in 4, maybe 5.
Maybe 5, yeah.
Yeah. The
Warriors... the Clippers could get one hot night and catch the Warriors slipping at Staples or something and get one, but yeah.
Although as of this recording, Denver and Golden State are tied tied at the top. So weird.
Well, that could be one where if they rest some players and drop a game or two, Denver could sneak in there, and then I think that becomes a markedly more interesting.
Now, this is funny about Denver though. 2-7 Denver, Utah. I'm not, Denver is having a good year, but I'm not so sure that Denver is ready for big time basketball just yet. I'm still kind of
I think Denver this year is kind of in that same role that Milwaukee was last year. Incredibly talented, but not ready for late spring, early summer basketball.
Mm-hmm. I'm not saying they'll lose to Utah. I'm just saying that can go 7 games probably.
Yeah, I think they're the most suspect team in the West, at least as far as the difference between regular season performance and postseason performance.
Right. Now, this is the team you said that would fall off the face of the earth, but never did that at the end. Houston and San Antonio 3-6 will be the first round.
That was my hot take on the season, that they would not be nearly as respectable as everyone thought. But hey, they've held it together. I still don't think they're going to do particularly well in the playoffs. They're going to run into Golden State and get sent home.
Okay, I mean, that's not really an insult. I mean, Golden State would be the only. I mean, to me, the only team that can challenge Golden State in the Western Conference will be Houston. Honestly.
But still, like in a series, no.
Now, San Antonio was the hottest team in the league until last night. My Miami Heat beat them last night at home.
Yeah. By the way, sidebar: the gift from San Antonio to D Wade for his farewell tour.
Yeah.
Very, very classy, cool gift. The Parker Duncan jersey.
Yeah, really cool. Really, really cool.
Yeah, and San Antonio does, they did it for Kobe too. They do some really classy stuff like that.
Yeah, of course. You give San Antonio a chance in this series against Houston?
Only because of Greg Popovich and that they're San Antonio. That's where, if ever my hot take was going to be proven, it would be in that situation. Kind of like the same way when San Antonio got sent home by Memphis that one year, that one fluke year. All indicators are such that Houston should make fairly quick work of San Antonio, but they're just so well coached and so well prepared. That's like the Patriots. You just kind of can never count them out.
And by the way,
although that's a little easier to do in basketball.
And by the way, 5-8 all tied. That's for the record. 5-8 all tied. That's for the record. Same record.
Yeah, the Western Conference is airtight. I mean, it's really exciting and it's really close. But I think a 7-game series really would separate that.
I think really here,
and it'll show us a lot about everybody.
Well, here's the thing with Houston. If I'm Houston, let's say you are playing San Antonio first round. It will behoove them to get that series done quick in a hurry. Longer it goes, San Antonio has a better chance to win that series.
Exactly. And the worst, like the name of the game for them really needs to be like sprinting to the Western Conference Finals, so that Chris Paul and James Harden can be as rested and fresh as humanly possible before they got to do they got to go 7 games with Golden State. Yeah, because if Chris Paul is not playing or not effective, they're fucked. They do not have a chance in hell.
Okay. 4-5 right now would be Portland and Oklahoma City. Now, let me ask you a question. Does it seem like Portland's not getting any love? Very quiet this year. Portland's having a decent year again, and no one's talking about it.
Portland always has like a quietly good showing, and they look really nice, and nobody notices it until the playoffs.
I mean, I get it. I know it happened last year. They swept by New Orleans, but
they're just a good. Yeah, but they're a good basketball team, and they're pretty solid year in and year out.
You just know once at the playoffs that their ceiling is pretty much the roof. Literally the roof. That's it.
Yeah. They don't seem to do well in the playoffs, and I think it's that they probably are a lot more dependent on Damian Lillard than they should be, and for obvious reasons. However, this year they are more, I think, better than they've been. And we may see something like that year they knocked the Dwight Howard, James Harden Houston team out. But they probably won't do much. I don't see them getting past the second round.
I mean, do they beat OKC? If this is the matchup?
The way is it?
4-5. I mean, this would be scary. I mean, this could be one of those, either way.
I think that's damn close, really, with as inconsistent and rough as OKC is right now, and all the things we just said about Russell Westbrook. I mean, I'd be a hypocrite if I said I didn't think Portland could potentially beat them.
You know what it is to me? You know what?
I don't think it's highly likely or likely, but I think it's
well, here's the thing, though. Here's why I'll give OKC the edge here. Who's the second best player on the team? OKC has Paul George versus McCollum. There you go.
Well, you surf Nurkic.
Steven Adams? I mean, I don't know, man. It's an even matchup.
I think Nurkic gets the nod over Adams. I think Adams is probably a stronger post player, defensive player, but the way that Nurkic can stretch the floor is, especially, on that side, to make Steven Adams work, get him away from the rim.
Mm-hmm.
I think that wins out in Portland's favor, and especially if Damian Lillard is effective in keeping Russ pretty much out of the game, and you're just forcing like Paul George to do it all for you. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
I don't see it.
All right, quickly.
I think that becomes 6-7 games that Portland could easily come out of.
Right. All right. Quickly, your thoughts on we'll go to baseball real quick. Your thoughts on Mike Trout's massive contract? 12 years.
Good for him.
430, right? Was it 430?
12 years, $430 million. Yeah. So yeah, it's like $35.8 million a year, something like that.
It is an overpay. It is overpay. It's overpay, but
it is
I understand
absolutely an over. Well, we've talked about this, I feel like, almost ad nauseum. My whole gripe is with the marketplace of baseball and that they aren't coming over to the whole shorter contract idea. But if that's the market and somebody's willing to offer you that, I think you'd be pretty fucking stupid not to take it.
Do you see
given that that's where baseball is?
But do you see a day that'll come back? Do you see a day that will happen when we come back to shorter contracts?
I think it has to, because, well, yes and no. If baseball is going to remain relevant, one of the guys that's on the local radio here in LA, Steve Mason on ESPN, he talks about this all the time. Make baseball fun again. Bryce Harper, Yasiel Puig, guys bat flipping and licking bats and doing crazy shit, and within reason, that's what makes baseball fun. 12-year contracts that have gone dead by the fifth year, hurt that cause. So if baseball is right now, I think it's a foregone conclusion that over time, the NFL is going to fall to either second or third. The NBA and the MLB have a chance to assume that number one space in the American sports landscape, because I think as soccer continues to grow, the global soccer continues to be more accessible to fans in the U.S., more MLS players or more European players start coming younger and younger to the MLS. They're not just like washouts like, David Beckham was pretty well done. He did win a cup for the Galaxy. As all these different things start to take place, it's going to dilute a very serious problem in the NFL. And we're going to start to see the best athletes in America play other sports. And it's really up for grabs between the MLB and NBA as to who's going to take that number one spot. And right now, I would say the NBA is firmly in the lead. And where the Major League Baseball does itself a disservice is by anchoring teams and players to deals that become toxic. Like, think about it this way.
Right.
The only way this contract ends is with one of the two parties looking like an asshole. Either the Angels getting rid of a beloved player and a pillar of the community, or a guy who was supposed to be the cornerstone of the franchise wanting to leave town and people resenting him for it. Like, it can really only go two ways. And there's a little bit of play in there, like that maybe it's a good exit, and if he asks for a trade, that the fans don't hate him, but like, there's no way that can end well. But if he takes a 5-year deal making $39.3 million a year and the Angels are still horse shit and the Dodgers are in a position and it makes sense, or the Phillies or whatever, he can leave town. It's no hard feelings. Or the Angels could trade him in the last year of his contract to get other players or other pieces and get some value back for it. But what ends up happening is these contracts become a dead horse that you beat for 2 to 3 years before you finally throw in the towel. And then all you're trading is a name that's going to sell a few season tickets when they get to wherever they're going. But ultimately, as the line goes it was the assessment they put on David Justice in Moneyball. They go, Steinbrenner can't wait to get him out of New York. Sure, he'll sell a few tickets in the early days, but come the dog days, he won't hit his weight. And if a player's done that, like, all you're trading is a name. It's just, it seems like everything that is a residual impact of a 12-year, $400 million contract takes you to a place of negativity and shoots you in the foot if you're fighting for relevance in the national discussion.
Are there any opt-out clauses in this contract?
No. No outs, no options, no nothing.
So it's all guaranteed. All guaranteed. Wow.
100%, all guaranteed. Close to $500 million, 100% committed and insured. If he gets run over by an OC Transit Authority bus and crushes his foot, never picks up a baseball bat again tomorrow, he's going to get every penny of that $430 million.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and that's where, yeah, and there's an out in the Manny Machado contract at like 5 years or something like that. I don't think that's going to be great. I don't think that contract holds up for 5 years, because he doesn't unless he starts approaching the game differently and taking care of his body differently, he's not going to hold up.
I think he'll hold up for most of that contract, honestly. I trust Trout. I don't know. Trust him.
Well, okay, Trout is now, and that's where we kind of have to come back to the other side of it, that if there is a player that's going to live out their contract with value, it's going to be Mike Trout. I mean, this guy is statistically, and it's sad that it's almost sad that he's not a bigger star, like that he doesn't have Bryce Harper's personality. Because
he doesn't want that though. He doesn't want that lifestyle. He wants.
Well, I don't fault him that. All I'm saying is that because he plays on a shitty team in a secondary market, and he doesn't have that magnetic marketing personality, so many more people in baseball don't realize the degree to which how special he is. Like, more of the casual fans don't realize exactly how special Mike Trout is. Like, how much better he is than the field.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Although it is fair to say that over the same time period, at age 20 through 26, Albert Pujols did have better hitting numbers.
Interesting.
Almost across the board. Average, home runs, OPS, slugging, on-base percentage. He only had one Gold Glove in that season, when he was like 22, and I think Trout's had 3 or 4. But I mean, he's just an amazing fielder, whereas Pujols was a good to serviceable fielder. But yeah, if you look at age, rookie through 26, Pujols actually was still more offensively productive than Trout.
All right, I saved you 5 minutes of this podcast to this rant on our president of the United States, Donald Trump. Why is he picking on John McCain again, man? Let's let the man lie in peace, man. Come on, Don. What are you doing?
You're doing it. You're putting him in a rational box. You're putting the president in a rational box.
Well, again, he's the president, so I have to remember, Yeah.
I know, but you have You have to forget all of that, like civics and history and decorum, that we spent the last 250 years developing in the Oval Office, and just completely throw it out the window with this president. And look, there's been other bad presidents too. Yes. I mean, when you look back at the people in America don't really, between the revolution, or between the War of 1812 and the Civil War, they don't realize how many times America almost unraveled over stupid shit because of bad presidents and others.
Yeah.
Until after Reconstruction and are getting a serious foothold into the Industrial Revolution, America circled the drain more than a few times.
No, I'm with you.
Let's get that out of the way.
I'm like, come on.
But the thing with Trump specifically, though, is that, I mean, the whole controversy came out. It was a thing on the Daily Show yesterday about like George and Kellyanne Conway. But one of the things that George Conway did was tweet out the like diagnostic criteria for narcissistic personality disorder, and Trump checks all 9 boxes, literally all 9 in the diagnostic criteria. The DSM-5 or 4, I forget what fucking version they're on. It was DSM-4 TR when I was in college. David, like. That's the best. I don't know if it's called I think it's the DSM-5 now.
I will say this.
The point is, he meets all the diagnostic criteria for an abject narcissist.
Well,
so it has nothing to do with John McCain or him being alive or dead, because what people fail to understand about Trump, every time they get shocked by his bad behavior and they clutch their pearls and they do all this stupid shit, it's like you're forgetting one simple thing. He operates through one lens, and one lens only. How does this affect him? And we're going to see when the New York Attorney General and the Southern District of New York or other state and local agencies that he can't pardon people from set their sights on his kids and Jared Kushner.
Yeah.
Like it just came out today, as a matter of fact. NPR just reported that Jared Kushner, that numerous aides who've been called before congressional investigators just in the last week or two reported, I believe it was to Jerry Nadler and the Judiciary Committee, that Kushner regularly uses personal email and WhatsApp and encrypted messaging apps to conduct official business, which violates a number of federal laws regarding White House record keeping. So no, I think as other investigative agencies start to set their sights on, sort of the whole corrupt enterprise angle of the Trump organization, and they start digging into all the tax stuff, the financial stuff, the stuff that really has nothing to do with the election, collusion, Russia, or any of that other shit. Just the way Donald Trump was living his life the last 30 years that flew under the radar because he was not in the public lens. This is exactly what I was telling you on a previous podcast would be his undoing. It was his own narcissism that when President Obama made fun of him, he had to be president. Well, stepping out into the light of the public sphere is probably going to be his undoing. He could have skated to the grave and had all the shit come out 20 years after he was dead and gotten away with it, for better or for worse. But now he's not. And you're going to see exactly how self-serving he is when all these agencies turn their attention on DJ, Eric, Ivanka, and Jared. Because he is going to throw them under the bus so fucking fast, their heads will spin, except maybe Ivanka, because he still hasn't banged her yet, although I'm not sure of that.
Oh, no. Why would you say that, man? Oh, my gosh. Ooh. Oh.
Just because that whole thing is so fucking creepy. Like, like John Oliver goes there, Trevor Noah goes there. I'm not even going to pretend like that's a moment that makes the crowd go, ooh. No. Yeah, no. They won't. That joke's been run around.
Yeah, I get it. Trust me, Bill Maher uses all the time.
But no, the point of all of that is that I think as agencies from which he can't pardon people start digging into Trump org, particularly the New York Attorney General and the Manhattan DA's office or whoever else, falls under the state and local stuff there. when they start digging into the boys and into Jared and into Ivanka, he's going to throw them under the bus so fucking fast it'll make everyone's head spin.
Well,
and it will demonstrate exactly.
We keep hearing it. Mueller report is about done.
Well, the Mueller report is just a starting point for the stuff that I'm talking about.
Right.
The Mueller report specifically deals with the question of, the foul play in the election and what have you. And then they have, a special counsel has federal mandate to then follow the facts wherever they go. Well, the facts are probably going to be something along the lines, I imagine, that there's going to be blatant and flagrant evidence of, if not collusion, a variety of corrupt acts and mountains upon mountains of evidence for obstruction of justice, as has been weighed in upon by numerous former U.S. attorneys. All those things are going to be apparent. It's not going to end in impeachment. The president is not going to have his election invalidated over collusion with Russia. No. Shut the fuck up. That's just, no. That's not going to happen. Stop it. Mitch McConnell and that Senate, forget about it. But what happens is that the special counsel's office cartons up all of their branches of their investigation and sends the information off to dozens of other agencies and jurisdictions that then follow up on those leads and they uncover a whole bunch of other larger threads. Like they unraveled a giant cable of rope. And from that are these thicker strands that, can be unraveled down to threads. And that's the responsibility of these other agencies and jurisdictions to chase down. And in doing so, I think we're going to see sometime between 2020 and 2025 a mountain of stories, or an avalanche of stories come out about the culture of just overall corruption that went on every single day in Trump work. By
the way, the most interesting story, though, the most funniest story of the week, though, is the fact is Kellyanne Conway's husband, who's actually a never Trumper. Kellyanne Conway works with Donald Trump. How was dinner in the Conway house? Is the question. I want to be on the wall for that one.
Well, first of all, I have a couple different thoughts on this. Number one, I want to comment on the depravity and appalling nature and just general grossness that we're even having this conversation. Mm-hmm. Presuming that something of this nature, that we then make that leap. So that is one thing.
Right.
The funny side of this to me is that I, in fact, think that Kellyanne Conway is a shark, because I watched her for a long time on, With All Due Respect and other stuff, when she was a spokesperson for Ted Cruz before joining.
Right. Correct.
Before joining the Trump campaign. And I think she's an opportunist. And I think it's just another job. And there's a part of me that almost feels like the joke in that is that George's Twitter is, and I tweeted this and got a bunch of retweets and likes for it, that my theory is that George's tweets insulting the president are just Kellyanne venting at work, and that's like her ghost account. That's her Kevin Durant ghost account.
That wouldn't shock me, though.
Is George tweeting all this stuff out?
That's the most interesting part of the whole thing, the week. That whole dynamic.
I can't imagine that it makes her working environment. Like there comes a point where it stops being funny because the president is in fact the narcissist that he is.
Yeah.
And will spend so much time talking and railing about these things that I imagine it makes the working environment exceptionally uncomfortable. But there's a part of me that thinks she doesn't really give a fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just everything I've ever seen from Kellyanne Conway on TV, she has no problem lying to Chuck Todd and other things. Like, she says things that are just completely absurd on TV with a straight face. I can't think she has too many fucks to give about this.
Oh, quickly before we go, last thing I didn't have this on the docket, but the Democratic field now starting to from shape. Now we're hearing obviously Beto's in the race now. He raised over $6 million in his first day, and now we're hearing rumors about Joe Biden. Joe Biden might actually...
God, go away. Uncle Joe, go away.
What? Okay.
And then this...
Stacey Abrams?
Okay.
Vice President
Okay.
running mate?
So to me, that is a ham-handed grab at trying to get out in front of. So here's the thing with the Democratic field that we're looking at right now.
All right, go ahead. Okay.
You've got more candidates in there that are far left wing, very, very, very progressive than you've had in a long time, with like Bernie and Kamala Harris and Buttigieg and others, Elizabeth Warren. Joe Biden, being the historical centrist that he is, has some really, if you start digging into his history, he has some problematic shit that's going to come out relative to equality questions, without even doing the research, I imagine, the talk around reparations, all these different things. And I felt like the whole Stacey Abrams thing was just a cheap ploy to get out in front of some of these more detracting stories once we start digging into his record as, say, a presidential candidate. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, I kind of want to just see all the white straight guys go away. Bernie, Joe Biden, Beto, all of them. The two black candidates who grew to national attention, and lost their races are out there doing. No, I'm referring to Andrew Gillum and Stacey Abrams.
Oh, right.
And they've been out there fighting for voting rights, access to voting, combating voter suppression, getting people registered, doing all the things they talked about in their campaign, highlighting the very things that, like Stacey Abrams was campaigning against with Brian Kemp and all those sorts of things. Beto's running for president. And I'm just like, really? Really? I want to see Kamala Harris up there. I want to see Senator Warren up there. I think it's just, I would only want to see Joe Biden as number 2 on a ticket, and that's not going to happen again. So go away. You missed your window.
That's kind of mean, but okay.
Well, look, I would have much rather seen Joe Biden in the 2016 election than Hillary Clinton. Right. And I understand all of the reasons surrounding Bo's cancer as to why he didn't get into the race. But that doesn't change the fact that the time has passed you by. Yeah. And that the field is there are better candidates already in the field, I think, than Joe Biden. As likable as he is, as accomplished as he is, as much as I personally like the vice president, I just, his time has passed, and I think this is the wrong field, and it's a bigger distraction than anything, and you should be out there campaigning for somebody else.
Well, we have a whole year to talk about this, so let's save some material for next time.
And the one thing I will say about, say, the 2020 Democratic field versus the 2016 Republican field is that I think that come convention time, the Democratic Party, even if it is a pretty broad field down to the wire and you have a contested convention, I think the Democratic Party is already much more apt to unity following a convention than the Republican Party was before.
Well, we know why.
Easy to, well, yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm going to sit there and belabor that. Yeah. But nevertheless, that's the fact that I see playing out, and so I don't imagine that a broad and hard fought primary will be as damaging to a general to the Democrats in 2020 as it was to the Republicans in 2016.
Well, we'll see. We got over a year from that point.
Oh yeah, we got a long way to go on that one.
Can't wait. I love campaign season. It's great. Anyway, Mark, it was fun as always.
This was a blast, man. I love doing this. Yeah. I love getting to let our hair down and be relaxed about it.
Yeah, it's fun sometimes, isn't it?
It is.